because it crossed my mind.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay.
So I just have to figure out
Yeah, 'cause
delegation.
it would be-
This is good
I'm
stuff.
just waiting for a signal from the electronics. We're good.
Did we get these screens extended so they don't go up?
Yes. Good afternoon. It is 1:03 on the 15th of December. I call this meeting to order. Madam Secretary, have you taken roll call?
Yes, I have.
Thank you much. Take a look at the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? Oh.
I saw it. On top right.
What's that?
I'd make a motion to approve that agenda.
I'll second. Motion's been made and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. The three of the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our regular meeting, also from our work study meeting. Entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I do not have any questions on either one. So with that said, I would make
Go to
that
take a
motion.
minute to think about it.
I did. I read it through pretty good. I
Alright.
personally don't have any questions or comments, so I make that motion to approve.
For a second.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the missions of both the regular meeting and the work study meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Public comment area that we always have open on our agendas in case there's any folks that would like to come in and address. Madam Secretary, anybody contacted you? Mr. General Manager, something there. So we will move on to certification of accounts payable. Accounts payable are listed in your agenda. Questions? Corrections that need to be made to that?
I do have a question on 32 and 33. We touch on this periodically with the bond payments. That's for the time period of November.
Kathy, the bond payments, we pay those quarterly.
Northland Trust is
Two
paid
different
yearly,
bonds there.
and the US Bank one is paid twice a year.
Twice.
Okay, so that 104 represents 6 months.
What?
The 104, 104,000
Yes,
represents 6 months.
yes.
US Bank is quarterly.
It's twice a year. We pay the interest monthly and the principal twice a
Right.
year.
So the US Bank one is for every 6 months.
When I say twice a month,
Yeah, quarterly, I believe is what it says. I want to make sure we're on the same page.
twice a year,
Twice a year.
it's 6 months.
Correct.
Okay, and the other one is an annual.
Correct. Well, the interest is paid every 6 months with the principal paid yearly.
Yeah,
Two kinds. of
I
things.
just, when you look at November, you see that, and I'm sure I asked the question already before, but thanks for clarification. I don't have any other questions.
Good.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the accounts payable. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Reports, simple reports, financial reports are included in your paperwork for this meeting. Are there any questions on any of those metrics that you want to bring to Mr. Butcher's attention?
I have a question pertaining to the coal supply. We did talk about that before, and I know the smaller utilities are all dealing with this, but are we in a safer pattern now than we were a month or two ago?
Well, Cinta and Excel continue to manage the full file at Schaefer.
Right,
And they had increased their, the price they were offering on the market in order to make sure that the cold lasts through the heating season. And they're continuing on that approach. You know, I know just through everything, through the supply chain, you know, just the transportation, it continues to be a challenge for everybody. But they are continuing to manage that, and we're seeing any problems of running out before next summer.
okay. There was just a comment on that on page 2 of their report that just caused me to take pause a little bit. It seems like everything is okay, that they are preparing for the heavier. That's the only question I saw on that report.
Anything else? No?
That I make a motion to approve that. If there's anything.
Yeah, I don't.
Or we don't even need a
We
motion.
don't
I'm
need a
sorry.
motion there, as long as you have all your questions. have been
Yeah,
answered, then-
and then answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Move to updates. We start with the electric department, Mr. Lind.
Yes. Since the last meeting, we've had a bunch of, we did half a dozen house services. We did do the final AMI meter change out right after Thanksgiving, so electric meters completely done. There was a service 3-phase customer that's coming in, for meter to go up to the schools. That is done and heated up, ready for them to continue on with their building. The Sunken ship is ready to go. We're waiting on their parts. They're having some issues getting their stuff. So we're ready to go for them. We did some work with the county by the safe walks for schools. We helped them cut down some trees so they wouldn't get into the power lines. Had some MMUA training. Most of you have probably seen, we did the Christmas decorations. Got some stuff done for the scoreboard that's going to be going up at Solheim Field. With meter reading today. And we're going to be starting inventory here towards the end of the month. Getting ready for that.
I have a question, Jeremy. The weather looks ugly for tonight. They're talking
Sounds like it.
80-mile-an-hour winds. I don't know what you do to prepare for those, but there should be something. This was the guy on the radio said we've never had an event like this in mid-December in all of our history. So keep your hatches back down or whatever it is. Take care out there. Be careful.
Yep.
If I may,
you may.
I don't know if the commission remembers, there was a blizzard last winter with high winds, which caused the lines to blow close together. I actually have some video out west of arcing that was happening. And so, you know, there are occasions where in high winds where customers may experience blinks, surges and things like that. So if anybody hears anything because of the high winds, that's usually what it is the overhead transmission lines are coming close together and there's some arcing going on.
Yeah.
This is for reasons like this, as well as electrical storms, which is why we always encourage customers to use surge protectors and everything else to protect their own equipment. But it's particularly susceptible during very high winds.
If the entire town is blinking, sometimes it's not us. It's our feet coming into town, and unfortunately there's nothing we can do about it. And that was the case with that storm last year. It was.
They were spreading gloom and doom on the radio.
It doesn't sound very pleasant, so.
It sounds like it's going to be a nasty storm.
Yep.
Water and power plant, Mr. Schmidt.
We did the monthly exercise run. Everything went good there. That part done for the month there. We got looking into some maintenance on unit 4. We're digging into some exhaust manifold little leaks in there. We're gonna continue to dig into that there, get that sealed up good. We had a new hire start. Shane Patron started Monday, so we got another set of hands here. So it's been going good, getting him up to speed. Lot for him to take in, but we're making headway and it could be a good fit. Did some locates. the water meter registers, that portion of our order came in. We're still waiting on the other part, but we did get the part of it in anyways, I guess, so we're still waiting on stuff, but that them did arrive. And we're working on some year-end inventories and maintenance in the plants.
Good, thank you much. City of Princeton update. Mr. McPherson, Mr. Zimmer.
All right, so I have a few things. Last week, we held our truth and taxation meeting that's required by statute for the 2022 budget. We've currently reduced the levy from the preliminary 11% down to 9.46%, so we're moving in the right direction. And we're still tweaking some things. There's a couple budgets, and we're doing some fee increases, so we're looking at some revenue changes, just some minor things. So I'm not sure where we're going to end up, but it's going to be right around that, probably 9.4, maybe just a skosh under. We didn't have any public attending the meeting. The sewer rates, one of the things that will go up next year for sure is the sewer rate, raising them $1 per thousand. They haven't been raised since 2011. So the council, we looked at the enterprise budget for the wastewater treatment plants and found that first of all, it should balance. So we did some hated accounting adjustments. Basically, we reduced the amount of depreciation that we're putting away for future replacements, at least in the interim. So that helped bring the revenues and expenditures more in line. Plus, with the rate increase, we'll actually not have to take money out of capital reserves, wastewater treatment plant capital reserves, in order to sort of manage that budget. And so that was an adjustment that the council made. So I would anticipate that there's probably going to be another rate increase in 23, just because we need to get our depreciation back up to a level that council's comfortable with. So that's the budget. Staffing, we posted our 3 vacancies. Community development manager, we received 4 applications. We've narrowed it down to 2 interviews. Those are going to happen next Tuesday morning. We're pleased with the qualifications and experience of both applicants. Although they are on opposite ends of the spectrum, we have an applicant that's fairly new and experienced, but she's got some good experience, especially in the grant writing area. And then we have an applicant that's probably a little more mature, has a significant amount of experience, but different. So it'll be interesting to see how they interview. The IT position and the liquor store manager position closed on Monday. Jules, you didn't submit an application for that.
I know, I missed it.
Yeah.
The ways that habit.
It's an ongoing inside joke. Anyway, we did receive 3 very strong applicants for the IT position. I would anticipate that they're all going to score fairly evenly, so we'll probably do 3 interviews. And then we actually received 9 applicants for the liquor store manager position. So that one will be a little bit more challenging, I think. In terms of development, the council met with a developer who is interested in 40 acres west of County Road 31 by the church. Currently, it's in Princeton Township. They agreed to explore the use of tax abatement or tax increment financing to help extend utilities to that piece. So at this point, it was just an overall concept. The applicant needs to do a number of steps. I looped Keith in on my email to the developer as to what the developer needs to do next. And so he was out of town. I anticipate he'll be getting back to me. He's got a consultant that needs to do, they have to do survey work and they have to do annexation request. And one of the things that one of the tasks is to basically set up a meeting to meet with our engineer, public works, wastewater, and Keith and his staff with the developer, so we can talk about how we are going to extend utilities. So more to come on that one. Yesterday we met, staff met, including Keith and his staff, with the county engineer, the county coordinator, and a couple other staff people from Mille Lacs County to talk about the County Road 4/7th Avenue infrastructure needs and project. We collectively here have sewer and water under that road. That road's also on the county CIP for, back in the day, it was going to be a complete reconstruction. Then we found out it was going to be a mill and overlay. And now the county engineer, the interim county engineer, who is actually in the same firm as our city engineer, basically said it makes sense to get it back on the county CIP as a reconstruct. So over the next year, I anticipate that we'll be doing some seeking of monies, and obviously it's on the county stated highway system, so the street portion of it would be have funding opportunity through that. But we'll need to talk about sidewalks and safe routes to schools and finding ways to fund the water piece and sewer piece, although I think we could use our ARPA funds. And so I came away from that meeting very positive. I think we're going to start a different era of communication, at least on the transportation piece, in terms of working with the county. So,
and we also shared with the city and the county that our tie line from the north up to the plant hub
Yes.
is down that road as well.
forgot about the
So while they're
electric
doing that work, would be a good time for us to upgrade that line for the DGR system study plan that we've been discussing as well. So we'll be able to at least, I think, get some economies of scale, by working together, help us be able to do some of those electrical upgrades at the same time as we're doing all the road work.
Yeah, so I anticipate that it'll be, what I heard yesterday was that the county would like the city engineering to kind of take the lead on all of the design work, so that one firm is kind of coordinating all of the work that needs to happen. So more to come on that project as well. We're working with a number of partners on what I'm calling our radio simulcast equipment project. Essentially, it's a public safety project that would put essentially amplifiers on the tower next to City Hall. I mean, that was the intent. That was the purpose of that tower, so that public safety folks, even maybe some of your utility folks who are in the 800 megahertz system, when they're in a building, can actually talk. It boosts the signal strength so that they can actually talk to each other. So for example, when Bob Gerald, Public Works Director, comes into our office, his radio bonks because it can't find a signal because it can't get out of the building. So we have issues at the school, potentially at plastic products, USDP, crystal cabinets, potentially in the lower level of the generation building next door. So, so for, if there was people in a building responding to an event, it's unlikely that their Mayday would get out if they would have an issue. So when I say multiple partners, we're looking at Mille Lacs County, Sherburne County, Isanti County, some of the townships, potentially the school to help fund the purchase of that equipment. It's about a $600,000 purchase. So Anyway, so, and we're working with the East or the Central Minnesota Regional Radio Board to try to find some state monies. So we've been kind of working on that since midsummer, and we're gonna try to get that ramped up a little bit because it's been 3 or 4 years in the making. There was a grant application probably 3 years ago that kind of just fell apart. And so we're trying to get that back up and running, so.
Is this the project that you were working on?
Yes.
Peaches?
Yeah, it's been ongoing for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just really appreciative that there's a group of people that are still see the need and necessity for it. Because
Cool.
it's a really needed thing. And I mentioned at the meeting, that was a big issue when 9/11 occurred nationwide, not just here, but nationwide, that emergency services could never or could not communicate with each other at that time. And here we are, how many years later, and we're still dealing with the same issue. But if this can get done, we've got it fixed here for, I
Yeah.
believe we would have it fixed for our
Yeah.
area.
Good.
Yeah.
So,
It's like pulling teeth, but you gotta stay on it.
it's like herding cats, and since I have more than 2, I can speak from experience, so.
Yeah.
We're still waiting on
Good
our
thing.
EDA grant, information, where it's at in the process. In fact, I just emailed the federal guy. This will help us fund half of the infrastructure for the business park. And also includes some warning sirens from a public safety standpoint. So hopefully I have good news before the end, before the first of the year. The annexation of the mobile home park, south of County Road 2, that paperwork has made it through the state, and it's now at Sherburne County. It needs to be recorded. That's kind of the final step. And then we'll be coordinating with Sherburne County dispatch to transfer call loads from Baldwin Township for fire and Sherburne County for police. Baldwin Township got the electronic notice and jumped the gun right away and said, "Oh, we're not going to respond from a fire call." And we had to quick tell them it's not done yet. It's almost done, but it's not done yet. So we're working through that issue. And then last but not least, we have some new equipment acquisitions. Chief Ron, and these are both in the fire department, Chief Ron Lawrence worked with USDP to acquire so the Class B foam, I'm probably gonna get the letters wrong, but the current foam that we use for flammable liquids like alcohol and gasoline is actually carcinogenic. And so it's been basically banned by OSHA from its use. So we had to replace that. So our new Class A foam trailer arrived this week finally. And USDP actually funded a significant majority of that expenditure on behalf of the city. And that trailer can be used, at the airport if there was something going on, or obviously for, and it's actually helpful for USDP's insurance if we have this foam. So that's a good thing. And then he was successful in, we needed to replace the UTV at the Wynette station. And so he managed to fundraise other than about $500, the UTV and the trailer through grants from the various snowmobile clubs around town. So Mystic Riders, the Ice Annie Sportsman's Club, some of the local small folks, like, I shouldn't say small folks, but the JCs contributed. We did get a grant from Operation Roundup. We also got some grants from mostly the ATV clubs and the snowmobile clubs around really contributed significantly to the UTV and the trailer. So the UTV is here, and we just got another fairly significant donation from the Isani County Sportsmen's Group that will actually fund the trailer, but trying to find a trailer is going to be the challenge right now. So that's all I have for updates. It's been slow, but at the same time, it's been busy, so.
Just for information, with the addition of the mobile home park Princeton, that makes Princeton 2 voting precincts now.
Yes, that's, yeah.
Because the other voting precinct was where I reside, Sherburne County, the only residential area, but now with that addition, it's too big to have write-in. It was just a
Yeah.
write-in.
Yeah.
So that's just for information. So I think we vote here
Yeah.
also. So 2 precincts, yeah. Then update just on that scoreboard. You had mentioned the scoreboard. He kind of laughed when he said the trailer, getting a trailer, with the supply and demand of that right now. The holdup was the iron for the pylons. Iron was a big thing for a couple of months, and then they finally got it squared away. And I was very excited because they called Friday and said, Monday, we're gonna be here Monday. It's past Monday and get those footings in and the pylons put up. Then he called Monday morning and said they all have COVID, so. So it's a work in the process, so. It's just it's an unusual age or time we live in. So hopefully that's gonna get in December. Yeah. But thank you very much for getting that electrical wire down, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
So is that sewer rate increase a done deal then?
It's half done. The council approved the first reading of the ordinance at the December 9th meeting. They'll approve the second reading of the ordinance at the December 21st meeting. So it's mostly done. So
Because a lot of people don't distinguish the PUC from sewer.
correct, and I will.
If you guys could
Yeah.
give some direction to our staff on where the direct.
Well, actually, Keith was
questions.
kind enough to find the bill insert that was included 10 years ago when they went from like $3 to like $7 and then to the current $10. So I'm going to basically borrow that and rework it for today's numbers and get that to Keith to put in the bill. So we'll take the heat on that. So I'm planning on actually putting something in so that they can differentiate between the city costs and the city costs. So.
For our customers that don't get the post office drop off of our bill, just get an email. Will there be something attached to that as well?
All inserts, we have electronic PDF versions that are emailed with the full bill. So as long as people scroll all the way down, they'll see it. But
Get
yes,
to the number and quit.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that'd be good.
Dan, you stole my thunder on that. I appreciate you bringing that up because it means that we're thinking the same way. It's really important that we don't take that hit because we take the hit on everything. As long as it says Princeton Public Utilities on it, we're the bad guys.
Yeah.
So.
No, Keith and I are working on that. Like I said, Keith was very kind when we started discussing it back in November, I think. He dug that out for me, so I just need to sit down and find 5 minutes or half an hour to rework it. So.
I think that was discussed at their council meeting, this very same thing. That's
Correct. Yep.
Council's very aware of that concern that you have.
Oh, we're
And rightfully so.
really trying to work on our public perception.
That's right.
It's been drugged through the mud over the last, especially over the last few years.
Yeah, just so council's sensitive to that.
We'll do what we can. We can provide information, but if people, they don't read what's been provided or, and we'll make sure that, please contact City Hall. That'll be me. So, So, we had-
Good.
Jules and Tara, Michelle.
Yeah, I got his back.
Oh, shoot.
7D, General Manager's update, Mr. Butcher.
Yeah, first off, we are heading into reporting season for us. Our regulatory report requirements all begin in January and go through the end of June. Our first one that is due is a paid equity report that we have filed by January 31st. That's done every 3 years, so I can't put that together until after the first of the year, so I get that taken care of. Otherwise, as the superintendent's mentioned, we're doing a lot of end of the year activities, but getting all the numbers aggregated together so that we'll be able to address those reports as we need to. But just so the commission is aware, January through June gets pretty busy for me as we make sure that we communicate properly with all the regulatory agencies we work with. Internally, again, this is kind of per a specific commission direction. When I first started, is we do have staff reviews underway right now. We're doing those, making sure that we do those on an annual basis. Those will be completed by the end of the year. The office will be celebrating, having the office shut down for the holidays coming up. For Christmas, we will be closed Friday, December 24th. And then for New Year's, we will be closed December 31st. On the IT side, work is progressing on improving physical security of our servers. Rick Bergman's been working on that, and then Jeremy and his crew have been helping out with that as well, so that we as I told Mr. Bergman, it's just so that we're better than we were yesterday. Just keep making progress. And so we are moving forward on that. And we did get UConn, which is our AMI software, upgraded on Wednesday, December 1st. So that got done. On the energy efficiency side, Nancy Kelly was in town on December 1st. Recent projects that she's worked on includes the Princeton Public Library and Fairview Northland Medical. The library put in some LEDs, and the hospital did a custom BSD variable speed drive project. Nancy is also, we've done a lot of work for Mike's Discount Foods, so she's gonna try to put a little write up together on everything that was on that, because it was pretty extensive. And then just wanted to say a reminder to everyone that they should get in their 2021 rebate applications before the end of the year, and then after the first, we'll have our 2022 rebate offerings available on the website. In working with external organizations, I have joined SIPA's Audit Review Committee. We meet twice a year to work with SIPA's auditors and review their findings before they are presented to the full SIPA board. Those meetings are held prior to the board meetings in December and April. So we met December 8th. We spent about an hour with Baker Tilly, who is the auditor for SIPA, just kind of going through the approach and the process and all of that. It was a good meeting, just making sure that the membership fully understands that SIPA's doing everything they need to be doing in benefit to the ratepayers. We participated in the mini dazzle parade on November 27th. We had our service territory agreement with East Central Energy unanimously approved by the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission on December 2nd. And they did instruct staff to update the GIS system accordingly. I haven't checked yet, but it will get in there at some point. Let you know, I did get a phone call and met with Sandra Erickson yesterday. She stopped by just to see how things were going. Had a great conversation, gave her a tour. She hasn't been through the power plant in many years. Mentioning a lot of names from the past that we walked through. She really enjoyed it. It was a good conversation. I wanted to thank her for reaching out, get to know us a little bit more and spending some time with us. It was a great time. And then as far as other things that have been going on, I do have scheduled for January 5th a get to know you meeting with Texas, so that they get a better understanding of who we are and what we do, since I'm new, I haven't met with them, so I do have a meeting scheduled for them on January. That is my update.
Any questions? Ongoing business, great, wellhead protection plan part 2.
Yes, sir. We went out for an RFP, just to recap. Wellhead protection plans are something that water utilities are required to do every 10 years. So our time is up. So we have to do an update. We finished off part 1 and working on part 2, which has to do with some technical services to do an inventory on potential contaminants to the water supply. So to making sure we understand, kind of do an inventory of the geographic area in those areas that can eventually seep down into the aquifer. We did that RFP. That is memo 21-35 in your packets. We received 4 bids, and the prices ranged anywhere from $19,900 up to $27,000 for the project. So we had 2 low bids. HR Green and WSB Engineering both came in tied at $19,900. Scott and I spent a lot of time going through the proposals and, checking to make sure it meets our requirements and talking everything through. I have no doubt that both organizations can do it. And as we just did a side by side and really kind of had to nitpick and go through it, we came up with the conclusion that we were just giving a slight edge to WSB. And so our recommendation is to go with that. One is, WSB is the city engineer. They work on our water system, which is nice. It's working with their staff. Again, the prices were great. Their cost structures made a lot of sense. HR Green, just so the commission is aware, is actually the organization that did our wellhead protection plan part 2 10 years ago. So they know this. And like I said, this is where it was not, not something where it was perfectly obvious, but when we kind of added everything up and looked at the ledger, as we compared WSB to Scott and I just came out as the slight favorite. That's why we'll make that recommendation.
Do you need a motion to approve that, or is that?
I do, yes.
Okay. Well,
I'll make a motion to approve WSB as the engineer.
I'll second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve WSB, the engineer record for our wellhead protection program. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried. Angela,
Yes, so the other RFP that we had go out in the last month or so, month or 2, was for our financial audit. As you may recall, we were notified that our longtime auditor, Meyer, Porter, and Nelson, is no longer offering auditing services to government clients. So we posted an RFP soliciting bids to assume auditing duties for the utility. And that RFP was issued for a 3-year contract, which seemed to me to be pretty typical in the industry. And it was hoped that that would help kind of keep our costs down so that we're not having to go through a learning curve every year. If we did something with a little bit more of a length to it, that would be good, with the option to extend it for another year. We received back 4 bids. This is memo 21-36 in your packets. I gave you the year-by-year breakout as well as the aggregate amount for all 3 years. You can see that that the bids came back ranging from $44,250 to $70,750. So there was a range. The low bid was Ms. Schaefer. And we still, went through all of the proposals in depth. I actually contacted one of the references in the Smith Schaefer packet, who happens to be Joe Hoffman with Preston Public Utilities, another member that I know pretty well. He's been working with them for a while. He's been very pleased with with their services. They understand municipal utilities. And so he gave me his vote of confidence that they would be able to meet our needs. So that gave me a lot of confidence, and given that they were the low bid, staff is recommending that Smith Schaefer be selected as our financial auditor for the next 3 years.
Where's the other?
Pardon?
Where did they reside? Where are they from?
I don't remember. I don't have that in front of me.
That's fine. It's just-
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember if they're closer to the.
Driving
metro
distance
area.
or
Pardon?
driving distance?
Yeah, I mean, they would still come up and do, do a physical visit, just, our last auditor was out of Staples, and they would come down. I really don't remember. It's south of us, I remember that part. I can't remember the city.
What's the name?
Smith Schaefer.
I'll make a motion that we accept Smith Schaefer's proposal, financial audit.
Holly,
Oh, okay.
Smith Schaefer and Associate CDAs.
Yeah.
Golden Valley.
Motion's been made to accept Smith Schaefer to conduct our annual audits.
I'm gonna abstain from this, that there's, with KDV, I have many personal close friends there, so I'm just gonna abstain.
Okay. I'll second it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. 2 and 1 abstention. 22 budget and fee schedule.
Yes, this has been, our ongoing discussion on the budget for next year. Our normal process is a budget gets introduced in October, time for comment and review in November, with the final budget proposal approved in December. And so that information is in your packet for the large project purchases, which include such things as the roof replacement, water AMI, wellhead protection plan, as well as the budgets for each department. I guess I'll just start with the budget first to see if there's any questions on that. So that would need an approval as well.
I make the motion to approve.
I'll second. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the budget that is proposed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried 3-1.
The second part of that, which is memo 21-38, is the proposed 2022 fee schedule, which had the staff recommendations in it. There were a couple of questions asked last time, so I did collect the data and would need some direction from the commission. In regards to the temporary connection charge, it is currently set at 140. The staff had proposed increasing that to 170 to do a modest inflationary increase. The question was asked, what is the actual cost for us? And we estimated 2 people at our current field rate for 2 hours plus a truck means that our cost is probably around $355 for the temporary connection charge. Connexus, like I mentioned before, currently charges $330. It is one of those activities where we've always wanted, or I should say the utility has always taken the perspective of we want to encourage development and if we get somebody come in that will be our customer, but we obviously have those sales and revenues for future years as well. And anything we can do to kind of help offset those first costs is always a good thing. Staff still does recommend the 170, but we did want to get that information back to the commission and get your direction as to what you want us to charge.
Any comments, gentlemen? I really don't. I mean, probably go with staff recommendation. Yeah. So I've said a couple times before, I can argue both sides of this coin, but yeah, I think we ought to be recovering a little more of our costs I don't think we need to go to 300 plus, but if the staff feels comfortable with 170, then I think we should go there.
Okay.
I guess we need a motion.
Actually, if we could wait for that for the end,
Okay,
then we can do everything at once.
okay, fine.
Commissioner Schwartz, did you have any?
I don't.
Okay. The other question that was asked was in regards to the private hydrant fee. It is currently set at $50. Again, we were looking at an inflationary adjustment. Based on our historical analysis, assuming about 45 minutes at field rate, that charge would be $56.25. So we thought, 55 made sense. However, I do want to point out that we currently don't have anyone being billed a private fire hydrant rate, nor does Kathy remember billing anyone a private hydrant rate. And so I guess I don't know the full history on it. It may have been an issue at some point that has just been on our books for a long time. It's always entirely possible too that it's there as a proactive measure. But the water department over the years has done a very good job of making sure that hydrants that are on our side of a customer meter, which is really the issue. If it's on the customer side, they can take care of it, it's their equipment. If it's on our side of the meter, which means it's not being metered, not being measured, and it's in private property, that's where we were running into some issues, whether we can get to it. But the water department over the years has done a very good job of making sure that we get the proper easements in place and no right of ways, and working with the city to make sure that if there is a hydrant on our side of the meter, that we really want to make sure is well maintained, we do so. So it may be just something left over from history. So I guess it's really at the commission's discretion. We can leave it at 50, we can increase it to 55, or we can get rid of it.
But I'd go with the staff request on this. I think, it's the difference between what the costs are and what we're currently are could have been significant, so carry on.
Okay. So I just did want to bring up those 2 points. Those were the questions that were raised last time. Otherwise, if you want to approve the fee schedule per staff recommendations, we can do that.
Get a motion.
Second.
Motion has been made to accept the staff recommendations for a fee schedule. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. 3-0. D, commission calendar.
Yes, sir. Memo 21-39, which is in your packets, is the proposed commission calendar for next year. I like to get ahead of this and make sure we put something in place. Our meetings are scheduled for the 4th Wednesday of the month, starting at 1 p.m. unless otherwise noted. For next year, I did move ahead the meeting in November, so it's not the week of Thanksgiving to November 16th. Otherwise, December 28th is the 4th Wednesday of the month next year, so I left that in place. Excuse me. But the other topic I wanted to ask is Commissioner Erickson and I had a conversation earlier this year about a potential commission tour of our facilities. Thought it would be good for the commission to be able to visualize. When Jeremy talks about the north sub, you guys know what that means. During the DGR session, Commissioner Schwartz mentioned the same thing, possibly going on. So I was going to propose in here that we just normally schedule some sort of tour, say June, July, August, when the weather's nice, we can get everybody out and about. However, given the system study discussion that is ongoing with the DGR results and the capital investments that are in front of you, we can do it sooner rather than later. So I guess my first question is that still of an interest? And if so, what time frame would the commission like?
I would like to personally see it sooner rather than later. And if that doesn't work, then Jeremy, I'd still like to do it independently if things don't work out. To me, it's very important that when you say something, I'm sure I could find it, see it myself, but an explanation with something goes a lot further.
So next month, maybe January?
Well,
I would
guess-
recommend sometime after the appointment every year, which would be, because it's possible that you'd have a new commissioner
Correct.
every year in January.
I'm sorry, Dan, after the what?
After the appointment of a new commissioner's term,
Yes.
I think it would be nice to take, and even if there isn't somebody new elected, it's still a good time to have an annual tour maybe of what's going on, but
Kick
I
off.
don't
the
know
year.
when-
We've scheduled that for the first council meeting in January, so it's the second Thursday,
Correct, the second. Thursday.
second Thursday, work session, we don't
So
do it.
maybe February or something. Would be-
Or, I mean, if you're gonna get out and about, you might, maybe want to do it like in April when it's there's no
Yeah.
snow on the ground.
We might, and maybe for this year, given.
We're
the new
Minnesota.
Well,
This year could be an exception.
Well, this year maybe we do too. You know, maybe we do a drive-by.
Yeah, I just didn't want to wait till August.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
I agree.
so maybe a drive-by when it's, so you can see it. And then later this summer, sometime this summer, we do another one where you can get out and walk into and see the switchgear at the north side, where you can, we can open up the door to a water tower and you can see the ladder.
Well, I mean,
I totally get it.
Yeah,
I don't
we can
think-
get you harnesses. So maybe I'll see if I can put something together for late January, early February. Or for more of a drive-by.
I think, there's the chance that there might be somebody new. I hope there is. But if there is that, right after that meeting at the city council, then we should plan on doing that. I think there's a benefit, not only individually, but for us as a commission to together see what's going on, to see some of these things that were pointed out in this document. It's a chore to get through, by the way, if you haven't read all bazillion pages that are here. And you get through, you're reading through these things and you go, I don't know what they're talking about. What is that? And so, just putting, that's the transformer that they were talking about. Oh, okay, now it's starting to make sense. But I think for us to share that at the same time is good for us as well as good for me individually. So.
And also, if I may suggest, I served on a city commission where I live. And that city, one of the things they did is they did a commission tour every year for all the boards, all the commissions at once. So I was on one commission and I would talk to somebody from planning. We would sit on, a little short bus together as we went from development to development. Us putting together a tour, I would love to invite Michelle and the mayor and the city councilors and anybody, any other board or commissioner that wants to learn more about what we have here in town, if that is okay.
Maybe that could be more of a summer thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd love to coordinate with the city if we wanted to kind of just do this an overall, hey, here's what's going on in Princeton. Not to put words in your mouth, but it's something that I participated in other communities and I found a lot of value in that.
I'd love to do a chamber of commerce event to some of the businesses don't understand. We have our own power plant here.
Right.
Yeah, there's plenty of either a morning networking event or a after hours type. Really looking for businesses to sign up for both of those events for next year, so.
So yeah, but at the very least, if we do one, I would like to extend an invitation to the city.
You have to have a motion to accept the calendar, Kate.
I do, sir.
I'd make that motion to accept the calendar as written.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded to accept the staff recommended calendar for 2022. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried. 8E, Echo 2021 charge offs.
Yes, sir. Actually, the next two items are Just end of the year activities that we always need to make sure we do some housekeeping on. One is the charge offs. These are for uncollected accounts that we have on our books that need to be eventually charged off. Many of them are very old, and so we need to just clean up some of the accounting for that. And then the second is the approval of a list of fixed assets that were disposed of in 2021. What the items were, along with their original cost, the total amount depreciated. As you see in 2141, both items were fully depreciated, so there's no impact to our financial statements. And we recommend the approval of both the charge-off list and the disposal of fixed assets. I do for, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to do that charge off list.
Second.
Seconded to approve charge offs for 2021. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried 3.
And then I do need one for the fixed assets.
Assets.
Yes.
I would so make that motion.
I'll second.
Just a quick question before, when you have a date for 2021, that is the date that we are liquidating it, or we purchased it?
That was the date that we did sell it or scrap it, depending upon.
Okay.
So if in this case, if you recall, we did purchase a replacement skid loader. So this is the.
Okay, motion has been made, seconded to approve the liquidation of these two assets. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Now, electrical system study discussion.
Yeah, sorry, I have a couple of updates, and then I wanted to just put it on the agenda because this is our first meeting since the work session. To see if folks have questions, but I wanted to just kind of recap kind of that whole process. Just so folks remember that a year ago, the commission did have us conduct an RFP to do a system study. And last December, we reported back that we had received 2 bids and DGR was the lowest, which is why they were selected. And so over the last year, after they were selected, DGR had actually presented to the commission in January about the plan. And then since then, Jeremy and myself have been working with DGR to get them data, quantify load shapes, all sorts of different material, as well as reviewing the recommendations and providing input as to what DGR was looking at and giving them some of Jeremy's knowledge in working out the field. They did present those findings last week. Was it last week? And also developed for us a 10-year capital improvement plan. That plan provides a framework and a guide, but the commission, as well as future commissions, will still need to approve items such as, for example, when construction bids are received. I make the analogy, just like WSP is the city's engineer, who also works with us to be our water engineer to help manage those projects, do the engineering work, but when we go out for actual construction, it's depending upon the price, it can be sealed bids. So it's a very similar relationship. And in an effort to keep the project moving forward smoothly and without delay, staff thinks it's advisable to continue to work with DGR for engineering services throughout that project. I really do think DGR is ideally suited to their plan. They will be able to provide a cohesive and thorough set of services, including analysis, engineering, and project management. So I just wanted to kind of recap all that, about what the structure of that looks like. As we move forward, and we've talked about this, we did at the November meeting approve a rate study. And we do have that in the budget for $30,000. I was talking with DGR, they do that rate study, and again, because they're the ones kind of putting together the capital plan, they would really be able to understand how that would impact a future rate study. We already have a master agreement with them, which details their hourly rates. They did provide a task order for that, which in addition to the rate study also includes work to conduct some coordination with our financial advisors. Again, if we do some large capital investments, we're probably going to have to bond for a lot of that. And how does that fit in? And how does that schedule and work out? In the DGR plan under phase 1, that is one of the individual line items that would have to be taken care of, is that coordination. Well, if we can do that as part of the rate study and get that done ahead of time, that helps keep those phase 1 costs down. You just take care of it as part of the overall rate study. So given DGR's knowledge, their involvement in developing that 10-year plan, and they do this for everyone. I've talked with my peer in Redwood Falls, because Redwood Falls Public Utilities, the city of Redwood Falls, also uses DGR for their rate studies and rate updates. They really enjoy working with them. So I think they're very well suited. So I was going to continue to move forward with them on that rate study. Otherwise, I guess the next step then would be, as we start looking at this phase 1 and we start breaking out what those engineering needs are so that we can better quantify project costs and work scope, would the commission like DGR to start developing task orders for those other engineering tasks so that we can start bringing that in front of the commission so that we can keep moving this project forward, but still have the commission the ability to review and make sure that the individual task orders make sense.
So are we understanding that they would do that booklet as we talked about and the rate study itself?
They would be essentially the project manager. So, and then they would sub out, we would do contract rates for all the construction. And then, yes, they would do the rate study to make sure that the rate study incorporates kind of the plan that they have there. And then as things change and evolve, it'll be really easy to update and tweak going forward. I think there's a lot of synergies that we can see.
Sure. At the time of that presentation, did we not know that they offered that service?
No, I didn't know.
Okay, it wasn't
We weren't there yet. To me, the first step, I didn't want to do a rate study. Yeah, I didn't want to do a rate study if we think that there might be some large bonding needs or capital investments. It felt a little bit like putting the cart before the horse. So I wanted to do this so we could get some numbers and some schedules, and then do a rate study to say, okay, now how does that impact?
Yeah, that all makes total sense. I look, if they do that to me is just two items in the grocery bag instead of 2 grocery bags and 1 in each. I mean, that's that, because they're familiar. It's just like WSB works with the city and we're working. There's knowledge there that's behind the scenes.
Correct.
So, okay. I'm good with that.
I don't need a motion, I just.
I'm just sharing, I'm good with that.
Okay. All right, I will continue.
Carry on.
Yep, I will continue to press forward.
8H.
Yeah, this is, just something that I always, I continue to like to have conversations with all of us here in regards to what this utility is about, who we are, how we approach problems, to make sure that we're constantly communicating with our customers, with the community as to who we are and felt I was at a place where I wanted to have a bit of a discussion regarding kind of what our guiding principles are, to kind of recap where we've been after the last 2.5 years. And again, capital plan, rate study, where are we going with all of this? And, I've always viewed the utilities role as a municipal utilities role, as having multiple layers to it. And one is, obviously, we want to always preserve the financial stability of this organization. Because that is a benefit to our ratepayers. If we're not strong and stable, that's not good for our customers. So we always want to focus on that. We always want to preserve and maintain, a world-class level of service to our ratepayers by offering competitive rates, reliable electricity, clean water, providing all those modern tools with how customers interact with companies and service providers. And do that in a way to serve both our current ratepayers and future ratepayers by trying to minimize and avoid adverse rate impacts and provide this current level of service, at least going in the future, but always looking to push that envelope. And I think it's really played out in what we have done these last few years, because we've really kind of gone through this in stages. The first step was really to look at the financial metrics of this organization, to make sure that we have adequate financial reserves, to make sure that we institute financial policies to ensure stability and security, and to improve and streamline our operations and promote fiscal discipline. I think that's what all of us are looking for. And we've taken actions to do that. We implemented several fiscal policies in 2019 to promote accountability, transparency, and long-term fiscal stability. Dan, you remember, we codified a purchasing policy in July of 2019. We implemented, or we defined a conflict of interest policy in July of 2019. We established a financial reserve policy that established guidelines for days of cash on hand that the utility needs to maintain to overcome unforeseen economic, technical, or weather-related events. That was in December of 2019. So we made progress on those. The result of that has been, and I use kind of June as my common time frame as I crunch some of the numbers. Our financials have changed in a very positive way. We've effectively managed our operating expenses on the electric side and have captured some significant cost reductions. In 2018, our electric operating expenses were $7.14 million. In 2020, it was $6.73 million, and it's projected to be $6.91 million this year. So those went down. Our cash reserves continue to build. We had $1.53 million in June of 2019. We're now at $2.27 million this year. Our days of cash on hand metric has increased from 87 to 137. And these are all really good things. I think it shows that we've made a very concerted effort to address them. A simple projection of these most recent results suggests that electric will reach 180 days by the end of 2023. So we're on the right path. On water, operating expenses increased in 2020 because we absorbed the cost for the Minnesota Department of Health drinking water connection fee, which is about $16,500 per year in 2020. So it's a benefit that we brought to our ratepayers. There's been some shifting in the labor costs with water staff working less in the power plant and more on water projects. And now with electric converted to AMI, the meter reading costs are all on Scott's back now until we get that fully converted. So there's been some shifting, but still all in a very positive way. Our cash reserves continue to drop. We were at $809,000 and we're now at $650,000. But that's due to the fact that we are converting to AMI without having to bond. Okay, a lot of utilities don't do it that way. And we paid off with that without having to impact rates and having to finance that over a longer period of time. We also funded a very large capital project in 2020. That was the 5th Street project, if you remember that. We paid for that with cash. Again, not having to impact our rates. As we project out those cash reserves, as we complete our AMI conversions, it would seem that our days of cash will probably drop to around 211 in 2023. So again, kind of the 180 metric that this commission is constantly talking about. We're right where we should be. That was phase one. That's what we've done. Phase two was really looking at that long-term system plan and making sure that those financial metrics align with our long-term goals. So in this year, the commission approved the electric system study and capital improvement plan to investigate grid integrity, anticipated capital improvements, and they plan to address any identified deficiencies in the system. This commission commissioned DGR Engineering to conduct that report, which they presented last week on December 7th, and which you are now currently evaluating and moving forward. Again, that's the next step. Financial stability and security, looking out towards the future. And then the next step is, okay, how does that impact our rates for ratepayers today and in the future? We last conducted a rate study in 2015. Now, with the passage of 7 years, because I'm counting through 2022, there are just normal changes to the local economy. And we've identified some capital investments that are going to be needed. So it is prudent to now do a new rate study. And that rate study is to help this commission establish cost-based rates to ensure that PP remains a well-managed and operated utility. Allow for sufficient funding to build, operate, maintain, and reinvest in our infrastructure. And provide for properly and adequately funded utilities that allow for economic development and sustainability of the local economy. So it's our goal in that rate study then is to help us accomplish the following. Maintain the long-term health and integrity of the system, quantify our policies, priorities, and initiatives, document the true cost of providing services, track that cost information, evaluate equity across customer groups, communicate this commission's financial decisions and their impacts with the community, and provide management with a decision tool and guide. Again, in order to accomplish that, this commission approved the rate study. Just last month, we talked about it here to move forward on that. So we are creating a work scope document and to define those necessary deliverables. And I anticipate that we will complete that work probably around September of next year. So those findings and recommendations can be included in your budget discussions for 2023. That's where we're at now. So looking to the future, what's the next step? And really, that's where we really start getting into the promotion of economic growth and economic development of this community. Got to believe that once the commission is assured that PPU remains a financially strong and resilient utility, that the overall system is robust and reliable, and that rates are competitive and equitable, that this utility will be uniquely positioned to provide valuable services to all current and future ratepayers. And I think the utility can play an important leadership role in partnership with the city of Princeton to promote that growth and economic development. And this can be accomplished in areas within PPU's current service territory. For this or mission would improve it. To look for opportunities
ratepayers now, the ratepayers in the future, and the city. Large, even beyond the city.
Coming from a different kind of corporate world. They hire people, organizations to come in and formulate these kinds of things. Have meetings on infinitum, how do we define all these things? Finally wind up, at the end of a couple of months, stuff going on, we wind up with a paragraph that basically captures the mission of this organization. What are we here to do? What are we trying to accomplish? And it doesn't need to be volumes. It needs to be that kind of guiding principle deal. And then all of the things that you list, past that introductory thing, are the ways that we get there. This is our mission. These are the things that we're going to attack to get there. We're going to make sure that our rates, we've done this with our rates, we've done that with our rates, we've done this with our policies. Those are key components to making sure that the mission of providing water and electricity to our community, it's ours, and we're part of that. And no matter what kind of a customer they are, if they're big electric, or small electric, or big water, small water, who cares? This is part of our community here. And this is how our mission is to serve that community. Make that little thing up. We can post it here, post it there. But that ought to be the driving force for everything else that we do. And I've been encouraged by working with this group, but that's really been at the forefront of every discussion we've had. We don't always disagree. We don't always agree, but at the end, and we march forward because we think it's the best we can do for our organization. We've strived hard to make sure that this organization is financially stable, that we can maintain the kind of rates, to use Dan's example of grandma can afford to pay these. We don't want to raise them for our relatives or your relatives or anybody else. We want to maintain the best possible. And so, I think capturing that paragraph is critical. And then everything else under needs to support that. And I think you've got a great list. And then we take that list of things we have done and say, what does that mean for next? What does that mean for this next proposal that's coming? How does that fit into this? And Yeoman's duty on this, good job. And I think we ought to keep that in mind. I think we ought to call for that. I think we ought to be posted right at the front door. This commission and this organization is focused on our community first and foremost. So, I'll get off the pole. And, if we carry on. I don't know what you need, if you need anything at all, except
Nothing, I just appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
We'll take it.
then let's move to our monthly favorites of the ACH discussion.
Yeah, I got some updates that I want to share with the commission. In regards to the convenience fee, I've had several discussions with James, who is our contractor at Neon Link, about various options for implementation. I've been working through a couple of scenarios with them and pushing them to look at a couple of different ways of doing it. And it looks like that we're going to be able to have Neon Link collect that fee during the transaction directly. What that means is we won't have to process it. It's not going to go through our billing software. It's not. We won't have an expense and matching revenue with it. Neon Link will just be able to do it since all the credit transactions get processed through them. They'll just collect the fee and then they'll take care of any tax reporting or other regulatory requirements that need to be done. So I think that's a good way for us to move forward to minimize our administrative burden. There's still a lot of questions on the logistics of that, figure out how that will work. But I think we're making some progress on how we do that for potentially hundreds, if not thousands of bills every month. We've also reached out to CMS, who does our credit card processing, to make sure that we implement this in a way that honors our user agreements. The responses from them have been slow due to the holidays. However, I did hear back late yesterday. As described before, we are currently charged a convenience fee, which they call a utility rate of $2 per transaction. But that is under the user agreement terms, means that we don't charge a convenience fee. If we do charge by charging a convenience fee, the terms of that contract change, and the service charges to the customer will be at a rate of 2.5%. And then from the communications that I got yesterday, it is anticipated that the contractor is going to want to do a 6-month trial period where that rate could fluctuate depending upon the size and number of transactions. But then hopefully after 6 months, we should be able to establish a longer-term contract to provide more cost certainty to our customers. But that was the number that I have been quoted, that convenience fee will be 2.5%. I also been working with Kayla to address the legal parameters. However, until I get the contract terms, there's not a whole lot that we've been able to put together. As soon as I get that, I'll forward it on to her because the request was made for our legal to take a look at that. So I don't have any specific guidance at this time, but I do anticipate that for next month once I get the user agreements in place. The next step then would be to work with our consultant to put together a new user agreement with that pricing, which would then be brought before the commission for approval. Once we have the actual user agreement, staff will be, well, I can actually start on that earlier, but I would need to draft up a convenience fee policy for approval by the commission. A lot of the stuff that we've run into over the years, it's just nice to have the policy dictating the terms and everything, so the customers, when they call and ask why this and not that or whatever, we have our talking points for our office staff. And then we'll be able to start working on a communications plan as well as the logistics of switching that over. Since we are charging a fee where we did it before legally, we have to discontinue all automatic credit card payments that are in place and have people re-sign up to make sure that they understand and that, you know, this fee doesn't get sneaked in later. So we would have to work with all of the existing customers who are currently on an automatic payment plan with their credit card to have them reset that up, I
Be a
guess.
good time for them to switch to ACH.
So we will have to put together a communications plan for the logistics of that switch. That is my update on the convenience.
So we set the rate at 250,
240.
240. But now if they're gonna change that, then we might have to relook at that.
Correct.
We might have to relook at that.
But I think once we have the user agreement, we'll be the time.
Yeah, and that's gone through my head, so it depends on what the bill is to said customer. You know, if it's $100, then it's $250. So covered, and if it's $50, it's $125. So I'm fine with that personally, to just let it go and keep reevaluating.
So if it's $400, they've got an all electric home and they have a $400 electric bill, then it's. Do the arithmetic.
Yeah, it is what it is, but then
The best would be everybody to switch to ACH, then we don't have to worry
yeah,
about it.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Schwartz, are you talking about leaving the fixed 240 or changing it to
doing
$2.50?
what?
Are you talking about leaving the convenience fee to $2.40?
I'm saying we've done what we've done. We've done the research. This is a starting point. And yes, we just leave it the way it is at this point in time, as we've discussed.
Even if we get charged 2.5%.
Well, that's what I'm explaining. If the bill is $100,
Yeah.
you're gonna get charged $2.50.
Well, again, what I'm trying to work on with Neolink is for them to pass through the cost to the customer, because I thought that's what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
In which case, it doesn't come across our books.
Oh, yeah,
Now, if we all of a sudden say that,
okay.
okay, first off, if we keep, in one of the previous memos, I
Yeah.
pointed out that our cost on a percentage basis is less than 1.
Yeah,
And if we now get charged 2.5%, but only recover $2.40, our costs are actually gonna go up. We're
Right.
gonna spend more under this scenario.
I misunderstood what you were trying to say.
I did
Okay,
too.
okay,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
So
Yeah.
it would seem to me to have our contractor just match what the credit card
Yeah, yeah,
would be the
Right.
most straightforward way to
right.
do this. And I
Right.
thought that was the intent.
Yeah,
Of the
yeah,
order
I
that-
misunderstood. what you
Okay,
were-
okay, all right. So, but yes, you're right. It's not, if somebody has a $400 bill, it's not $2.
Right.
It's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was thinking about with this, that ACH is, I guess when I was thinking about this, I was envisioning it as the residential customers. So I guess we've never had that discussion.
Separation from business and
Yeah, on the AC, if you switch to ACH, so I don't know what your two thoughts were on that, but.
I guess.
Well, I haven't gone into the 3%.
Oh, okay, I'm
Because
sorry.
I was talking about the convenience use first, make
All
sure.
right, I'm still your thunder.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, so if a guy has a $400 bill, then his charge would be $10.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, just, we're playing for these numbers from up to so you know what it is.
Correct.
How are they charging? They bring a credit card into you. And then how does that get on, how do they pay it? How are they billing the customer correct without you?
Well, everything gets processed through the web portal.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're not at your
They do
window.
a deposit.
No, they are,
It could be.
but when we log into the computer, we're doing it through the same web portal that you can use at home.
okay.
We never bought a card reader or anything like that. We don't do anything local.
Okay,
We process it all through the website.
Yeah, as they process it, it just shows up
Right.
in the bank account. Yeah, because I have that with my rental properties too. I don't understand how they do it all, but
Yeah.
it's
But yeah, we don't have two credit card systems. One physically here and one for those who are paying remotely. We just have the paying remotely and then we just log in.
I was just envisioning you had a card reader. and-
Yeah.
no, it's all online basically.
Got it.
Yeah.
Which is great because it
Yeah,
saves a lot of staff time for sort of thing.
Well, and then you have rental fees on equipment.
Mhm.
So that's where that project is at. In regards to the 3% ACH credit, we have been working with Mitch, who's our consultant with Power Manager, to determine the best way to implement that. So far, we determined that it was best to duplicate all of our water rates so that we have one rate for ACH payment, one rate for non-ACH payment. If done for everything, that means we are doubling our rate entries. We're having to create 28 new rate entries in Power Manager. So I do have that question, which again, is just as a clarification, the ACH credit is, I guess, the way I was looking at it was because of the benefit it saves from not having people at the lobby window, and which is really driven by the residential class. Was the intent for that 3% rate to be just for residential, or was it to be for everybody, including commercial, industrial, municipal, irrigation? And so I wanted some clarification on that. Once we're able to determine some of those logistical details, we'll be able to draft up an ACH credit policy for approval by this commission, so that can go into service rules. But I did want to ask about the residential class. Is it limited to just them, or was it meant for everybody? So we have some pretty large water users, which would be a very significant credit. But they pay automatically via others anyway. So, question for the commission.
Do larger companies, not the private, do they use credit cards to pay?
Kathy can speak to this better than I. We've always encouraged them not to. So I don't think we have a lot that do credit cards, but you can speak to us better than I can.
I guess I haven't gone through the list. But yeah, there are companies businesses that are using the credit card auto pay. I can't say whether they're larger ones or not.
So you don't know if there's a difference between a single proprietorship and a corporation?
I haven't gone through the list of the auto pays online.
Okay.
I could.
No, it's one of those things where, I guess my experience has been when you have your small mom and pop shops, they might do something.
That I
like
would
that.
understand.
The larger corporations tend to have an accounting department. and they
Right.
Process. So.
Mhm.
I will just share an experience I had. Customer in Australia paid a very significant bill with their credit card because we didn't have a policy in place. And we took a wallop on it, and she earned her son and daughter-in-law a world trip cruise that they were very excited about. Put on her Delta credit card or whatever. And so I think we just want to be cognizant of who we have out there and what they're using. I would suggest that corporate customers have better ways to pay than using credit cards. But
So limiting it
we have to
to
look at that.
limiting the credit to residential is a.
I think that makes sense.
That's always been at my forefront is the populace, not the
Okay.
smaller.
And Chairman Hanson, if I may say, again, I just want to point out that we are currently paying a flat rate at $2 per transaction. In the conversations that Neon Link has had with CMS, it's a lost leader for them. It actually,
I think
it's a lost leader for them. CMS actually lost money last month compared to what they collected in fees because when people get miles, it's more than what they paid for our transactions. I think what happens is I think the credit card companies want everybody to just use it for everything. And when it comes to utilities, we get used to paying it every month. But we don't get hit like what you described because it is a utility rate. It was a flat fee. But I just wanted to just make sure we understood how that worked.
Well, no, I guess I want to go back to Dan when you originally proposed this, the 3% deal. Did you have corporate accounts in mind?
No, I was more thinking about the staff time and and then the volume of the transactions, of the fees, looking at that 2017, whatever number it is, $1,000 per year, whatever that, trying to reduce our expenses, and if we can get everybody on ACH, it's going to reduce staff.
No, but I mean, from a customer standpoint,
I guess I don't really know what the numbers would be,
Well,
different. So
I would
it's hard.
say, and again, Kathy can help me with this. Most of our window traffic is residential.
I guess that's what I've always been in my mind,
Yeah.
targeting, because that's the numbers. Okay, when I mean numbers, that's the
Well,
group,
that's what the
the
volume
per
is.
capita is,
Right.
and it's, I don't know what kind of direction you're looking at here for, but we certainly start there
Yeah.
and make changes as we go.
So we are gonna have to do some motions as we get more detail, but staff will work in the direction of doing the 3% credit for residential, the residential rates, and see where that takes us.
Yep.
Okay, will do.
And- Okay.
I think we're all on the same page here.
That's all I have.
Any new business needs to be brought?
I don't have any new business, but I do have a question for the city people. Because I don't think you were here with the DGR, and Michelle, I know you had to leave earlier at that meeting. Do you have any questions on what we're take you on there. It's quite intense. It's a
Yeah,
big system.
yeah, I actually made it through the end of his presentation, and then Keith was kind enough to give me the book, which I haven't read yet. And also emailed over to me the presentation that was, that the gentleman went through, which I thought was fairly concise and didn't pull any punches, in my opinion. I mean, it was pretty blunt about the investments that are going to be needed. So I shipped that up to the council so that they could review it at their leisure. But I mean, it is a significant amount of investment that needs to happen in order to make sure that your system's stable. And you know, it's amazing to me that they've managed to band-aid some of the equipment for as long as they have, and that it's actually, you haven't had what I would term a catastrophic failure, of the transformers and those types of things on that. And I understood the sense of urgency that there is in doing some of that work that needs to happen. Now it's just a matter of, how do you, I mean, it's just like the city. I mean, we're next year, we're going to be doing what I've nicknamed the infrastructure prioritization plan. I mean, we have sewer and water and streets that, I would like to see some of the streets become more narrow, which long-term means less pavement management, and, traffic calming modes. Narrow streets encourages people to park and narrow your traffic lanes. But we're essentially going to do the same thing that you're essentially a year ahead of where the city needs to be in order for us to identify, okay, where do we start? What are we looking at for costs? How do we pay for it? So we're lagging a year behind. You guys are going to be, you're going to do your rate study next year. So by 2023, you'll have a handle theoretically on, where are you getting monies to pay for these infrastructure, and let's all knock on wood that you don't have catastrophic failure in between times. And we're in the same boat. I mean, we just had, 7th Avenue, we just had another private sewer line failure that, and that pipe is 26 feet in the ground. And so, there was a contractor out there trying to make a Band-Aid fix. And let's hope that we don't in the interim, by the time, it takes us a year to, the sewer plan's done, but we still have pavement and transportation to do. And then we have to sit down and figure out, okay, is there money in the infrastructure bill that just got approved that we're all waiting for the federal bureaucrats to go through 1,000 pages of gobbledygook and try to figure out how to guide us in terms of, how is the money going to be appropriated? What projects are going to be eligible? How do we apply for it? Those types of things. So hopefully by the time we get through there, we're at a position where we can seriously start looking at how do we fund that. So we're in the same boat. We're just not as far ahead as you guys are. I mean, we're a year behind for our stuff.
The other thing for both of you to know too is we are getting to a point where some of our existing bonds are fully matured. So we'll be, we are actually in a very beneficial position that because some bonds are going to be paid off, it's now a good time for us to reinvest in the system. So I haven't made it this far. I still get nervous sometimes, but I think we're on the way to be able to do this with minimal rate impacts. I'm very encouraged with that. And the rate setting will tell us on this. But I think we are in a good position to now that we've paid off the existing infrastructure that's been fully depreciated, fully used up. All right, it's time to start that cycle.
Yeah, and I think that I think the message has to get out there that, I mean, both on the utility side and the city side, that, the investments that should have happened maybe didn't happen. And so there's clearly a benefit, and we need to relate to, you just talked about residential rates for the rebate or whatever for going to ACH, kind of focusing on the residential population. I think we're in a position where that message needs to be, when we get to a point of how do we pay for all of this infrastructure improvement, it needs to be relatable to the average citizen. So this is just like, okay, we need to replace pipes and electric lines, just like you need to replace your siding or your windows or your roof, so we need to make it relatable. I mean, we kind of talked about the levy increase as, it's on a $100,000 house, not that there's any or very many of those in town, but the levy increase, on a $100,000 house, equals a $16 a year increase in property taxes. Well, that's like 3 nice lattes or whatever at Starbucks or Caribou, pick your poison. So, if you multiply that times 3, well, that's 9 lattes over the course of a year. And, a lot of people like to buy their fruit coffee and, are willing to spend that kind of money. So putting it in relatable terms that an average resident or average homeowner can understand, that's kind of key to getting the message out. But we'll worry about that when I get the plans done and we can figure out what bite-sized pieces we can chew off and what monies we can find from other sources. So.
Well, it's nice to hear that we're ahead of somebody. Because after this, it looked like we were way behind.
Yeah.
And we're going to be playing catch up for a while, but at least we know where we have to catch up. So this is a valuable document, irritating, but valuable. And,
I think the council's going to feel the same way once we present the infrastructure plan that, WSB will be helping us with. We have money budgeted in our CIPs to pull together a transportation plan, a pavement management plan. We already have the sewer plant done. And, I'm assuming you've got some water plans floating out there, or you will have, or some such things. So pulling all those plans together to help prioritize, where do we start and what changes do we want to make, and what are our options and how do we pay for it. It's going to be an interesting exercise and analysis.
so say we all.
I'm guessing you're gonna want to trade plans with us once you're done.
Well,
I
don't think I can. I think we just have to,
Yeah.
we just have to bite the bullet and get creative and
It's gonna be
hope that, I'd like to see us, try to get into a bonding bill, or, hopefully there's, I think we all know from watching the news or listening to the news or whatever that, nationally, this country has not done a great job in reinvesting in its infrastructure, period. So, we're not alone in this situation, but for, outstate cities and counties, it's hard to find the funding to do these types of projects, just because.
Get your piece of the pie.
Pardon me?
It's very difficult to get your piece of the pie.
Correct, exactly. We're competing at the state, metro versus outstate. And the the rural narrative, you know, even though people assume that people are leaving small towns, in reality, they are coming, people are moving out to small towns. And so, and with remote, you know, people being able to work remotely and, you know, hence the need to invest in broadband. And, you know, if we can make those investments, there's an opportunity for small towns to become more vital again and grow. But, you know, we have to be able to make sure the toilet, when the toilet's flush, it doesn't back up in your basement, you know? Or when you turn the lights on, the power works,
I have
so.
that problem. The sewer's cracked out in front of my house on the street, so. Found that out.
Oh.
Hard with it. No
Yeah.
plan to fix it, just try to kill the trees that are growing up there.
Yeah, so, anyway.
The reason I asked that question is we didn't have to go down that road. We could have said, wait, you know, next year. But this is a very conscious, progressive commission. And we're also very responsible, have that responsibility on our chests for the ratepayers. Our forefathers brought us here to this point. And what are we gonna do with it? Are we gonna, you know, I'm not that type, and I don't think the commission is that type. So that's why we're saying yes to a very large bill that goes along with it. You know, it's not payable tomorrow or in one check. But our positioning, as Keith explained, is sitting well. Otherwise, it'd be more difficult to say yes. But I think it's really important that the council understands by us saying yes, our commitment to be there. So when you do flush or flip the switch, it works. So getting that across to the public is maybe
I
more
think, you know,
difficult.
we're in a different position too, you know, we're appointed commission, you got elected officials. It's a lot harder to get reelected if you are, you know,
Yeah.
voting for expenses.
Right.
That it's easier to defer maintenance and get reelected, you know, so.
But, you know, I would say, I would agree with Commissioner Erickson on that point. However, cities everywhere get stuff done, and it's really a matter of messaging and really, again, making the
Yeah.
message relatable to, you know, people have, I mean, everybody, not just residents, I mean, myself personally, you know, we have a fear of the unknown. And sometimes the fear of the unknown is just not having the message relatable. So, okay, so you're gonna assess me for part of the street improvement or the water improvement or the sewer improvement or the electrical improvement. I don't know if that's accessible or not, but at the end of the day, what does that mean for my pocketbook? How can you make that message relatable? And again, I think if you relate it to, well, it's like you needing to replace your roof at some point. I mean, you know, unless you put a steel roof on your house, which has a useful life of 50 years, you know, an asphalt shingle roof usually runs 25 to 30. And, you know, at some point you look at your house and go, oh, that's why my bathroom ceiling is water stained, because I have a hole in my roof or my shingles are shot, you know, so, and then, you know, if you were lucky and you set aside money and planned ahead, well, then you're sitting okay. But if not, then, you know, do you refinance your house? Do you take out a separate home improvement loan? Do you work with the city to qualify for, you know, small cities improvements, you know, so yeah, I think it's really a matter of messaging and, you know, having a good plan, you know, a plan that actually has real numbers in it and you're not just shooting from the hip, creates some assurances that you're just not throwing a dartboard at a moving target and just picking a number out of the air. You know, you actually have an independent third party that knows their stuff, that came to you and did your study and came up with, you know, dollars that granted are third quarter 2021. So by the time you get to first quarter or second quarter 2022, those numbers might shift or slide, or maybe, you know, the economy does something different and costs come down, and let's hope that borrowing rates stay favorable, you know, so that the carrying costs aren't exorbitant. I mean, there's all kinds of sliding factors that are gonna have to be considered. And we're, like I said, we're a year behind of where you're at. And so we're gonna have these same discussions and messaging. And in the meantime, I have a finance officer or finance director who is looking at, okay, it does not make sense for us to invest money for 5 years and get 1% interest when we're paying 4% on our debt. How can we eliminate some of our debt or pay down some of our debt so that we're in a better position when we need to figure out how to pay for our, you know, for our improvements. So
I remember a study, when I first got into the paving business, that someone did actually, you know, a lot of the developments did not have paved roads, that were gravel roads. And so a realtor group that did a study on what the value was added to have a paved surface in front of a home. I seem to remember it added like $7,000 to the value of the lot back in 1990 or something like that.
Sounds about right.
So I don't know if that's changed, but I mean, that's something that, you know, a lot of people don't think about, like, you know, as those streets get really rough out front. Like somebody asked me just this morning, actually, one of the Blue Hill Township supervisors asked, was in my office, said, do they even plow the streets in Princeton? I'm like, well, yeah, but it just doesn't show it because it's so rough. And so because it's, you know, the street, you know, some of the streets are not hot mix asphalt paved streets, they're old, you know, old road or whatever. So you can't get a plow blade to scrape them off clean. And, you know, there's the value to the property. There's the, you know, probably some savings to snow removal that we'll see in the city. There's probably a lot of benefits that
Yeah,
to
and
redoing the streets.
you know, I've tasked when we do our street analysis, because we, you know, we're gonna do a pavement management plan and a pavement assessment. Part of that, you know, we need to look at the pavement, but I mean, there are areas where, you know, maybe we need curb and gutter where we don't have it to help with stormwater ponding and make people's yards better. And so it's really gonna be a comprehensive looking at, and like I said, I would like to see some of the streets. We get a lot of speeding complaints. And sometimes it's just the perception of people speeding, because we have a nice speed trailer that Todd can set out and look at stuff. But some of the streets are, in my opinion, have a pretty wide cross section, wider than what, you know, an average typical residential street likely needs. And so are there opportunities where we can narrow those streets up, you know, look at the stormwater ponding? Do we add curb and gutter? If we narrow the streets, does that, you know, help people slow down? Because, you know, if you've got a 32-foot wide typical street section, you can still park on both sides and then have lanes of traffic, but you have to slow down because you've got parked cars on the side of the street that you have to work around.
I see it on my street because towards Casey's, it's wider, and then the half a block up it narrows right by my. So you see them come, they have to.
Yep.
If someone's parked, yeah, I see that. You can stand there and watch that happen.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, I just want to comment. You made a mention of elections, and you know, being elected is hard. So it's indicating that elected people are reluctant to raise you know, like levies, otherwise you won't be reelected. But I just wanted to point out that this council is very good. This council went from last year 2.5.
Which technically became 0.
Yeah, but percent increase to this 9.46. And at no time was any member of the council reluctant to approve this for fear of not being reelected. I think the discussion was more of a consensus manner in which we came to the agreement that this is what is needed to effectively run the city.
Yeah.
And regardless of the outcome on
I
elections.
didn't mean any offense.
No, I know you did.
It's more of, you know, I was thinking that's possibly why the maintenance was deferred this long.
You know what? I do suspect that.
And then I hope that
From
someone,
previous.
and it's
Yeah.
it's a tough decision.
Yeah,
But at some point, someone has to make that tough decision.
yeah, and what I'm saying is this council isn't afraid to, I don't see them being
Yeah.
afraid to. I mean, we're
And it
an
takes-
ITT
yeah,
person.
Takes big shoulders. I mean, and, you
Yeah.
know, and we're not gonna go without rate increases forever
Yeah,
on this commission, and that's gonna be
Yeah.
tough decisions, you know, when you have to raise rates, raise taxes or whatever in order to keep people supplied with good streets, good clean
Yeah,
water,
those are all
whatever it
important.
is. So,
yeah, those are all.
It doesn't come, it just doesn't
Yeah.
fall out of the sky. I mean, it
Doesn't-
costs
and
money.
it's- We have to get the message across to the property owners and taxpayers and ratepayers and everybody. One other comment I can make is it's a lot easier to sell budgets and sell, you know, increases when people can see what they're getting. If you don't see that sewer under there,
Yeah.
it's more difficult, you know, but
They're
like
gonna
the
notice the
trails.
streets.
Yeah, the streets, they'll see.
If they do say it, you have a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like the trails, you know, the
Yeah.
trails we worked on, you know,
Yeah.
they're so visible, the Riverside Park
Yeah.
trails and Reedy Park. And if all of a sudden there's a bridge over
Yeah,
the Rum River connecting the two, it's something they see and they
yeah.
can appreciate more that you see their tax dollars running through. So
I know, I appreciate it as a resident
Yeah.
of the city, you know, I'm gonna really appreciate the tough decision of getting
Yeah.
our streets and infrastructure with someone that has some pretty rough streets out in front of my house.
Yeah.
And this crack in the sewer main that the trees are growing into. I mean, you know, I'm experiencing, you know, that, and it is what it is. And, you know, we'll keep an eye on it, but it would be nice to have a plan of like,
I think we're getting there.
yeah.
We're gonna get there. And it's.
And I know it's gonna cost me money.
It's gonna cost. And that's where you have to balance it, you know, the people that, you know, you hear the fixed income, you know, that comment all the time, and those are true, you know.
But it should add value to those properties, you know.
Yeah, but value to the property doesn't do a whole lot of good when
Yeah, when it
You-
comes time to pay taxes,
you
right?
pay it, you know, and you're still living there, and you won't reap that benefit till you move on or you die, or whatever it is. So I get it, I really do. But
It just really shows how important that it comes back to the base. Where are these taxes coming from? How big is your base? You know, if your base stays here and the taxes go up, you're still only pulling from that base. So if your base grows, everyone's contributing, or more people are contributing if your base grows, no different than us. We can't do these improvements if our base is only here. So as you grow, we grow, and everything grows, which then it's right across.
that's true.
To go forward.
That is true, but on the other hand, you have to, if you grow, you have to provide services,
Right.
and that increases too. So it's a balance.
The opposite
yeah.
though, if you don't do that, then you become this little tiny honeycomb
Yeah.
of nothing, and you disappear.
Just so you don't outgrow your means to make.
I don't think Princeton's had that problem.
No, and we're very careful, and we got a lot of good, there's a lot of good things going on, but
Now,
I'm more sensitive to, because I know it, you know, we have Schaefer Mobile Home Park, you know, okay, that's great for tax base eventually if it comes in, but we also have to provide services there now too, which a year, 2 years from now, is that going to add another member to the police department? which,
Yeah.
how much you get out of the taxes to pay for, with benefits and everything, $80,000 for an officer. Another squad car. So I agree with you and I'm all for growth.
I just
But
always-
there's a balance.
I've always lived under the impression and statement that if you were standing still, you're not really standing still, you get lost in the dust because somebody's gonna pass you by. And I even had a discussion with somebody that didn't agree with that, growth, if you're standing still, growth will overcome you. And if you don't do anything, you get left behind. So if you move and progress and everything else does, it brings on the newer car dealerships, it brings on nice restaurants. I mean, you guys all know this, but that's why moving forward is always a go in my mind, because if you're just standing there, somebody else is gonna take that business and they're gonna do it in the other towns, et cetera, but that's a different subject matter. But
To show that statement, we're not alone in the city. And all you have to do is look right to Baldwin Township, which was where one of my businesses is. But their roads, they have no road program there, because all those roads should have been overlaid every 15 to 20 years. The road that I put in on my little industrial park development was put in 1994. It hasn't been touched. And it's starting to just crumble. And that's one of the newer ones, of all those developments. So their cost, they're 2.5 acre lots. Where in the city, we can divide it up between a lot of residents, through the blocks, but they're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, that's the, I guess, downfall of, if you're gonna require paved roads, then you need to plan for
Right.
seal coating and
Correct.
mills and overlay, otherwise, at the end of the day, they'll just turn into gravel because they're just gonna break.
Yeah.
So winters, so.
Yeah, you drive around some of the overdeveloped roads of all the townships. It's.
Well, yeah, and then, until they completely sort of fall apart, you really can't do anything with them. You can't add gravel to them, you can't grade them, you can't really maintain them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In closing, I'd like to thank you for spending the rest of the extra time here. I think it's great that we have an arena where we sit and visit, exchange some things in a less formal setting, because you're at the tail end of the meeting, and it works good to have this opportunity. I think it's important for us to maintain that. Carry on, folks. At this point, however, I would
you're
entertain
looking for something, aren't you?
a motion. I've got my hammer ready.
I will make a motion
Second, motion is made second to adjourn this commission meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion